On an early March morning, a truck stopped in front of the maternity hospital in a village. 2 guards got out and brought out a woman. It was obvious she was pregnant and in labour. She could barely walk, doubling over from pain, clutching her stomach and lower back. "Hurry up!" shouted the guards. "Why couldn't you wait until the city, you fool?" The emergency room erupted in commotion when the staff saw their unusual patient. It wasn't every day they brought prisoners to their small maternity hospital to give birth. This one wasn't even meant to be here. She'd gone into labour during transport to the specialised women's prison. Dr. Barbara Gibbs had just started what promised to be a quiet shift. All her patients had already delivered, and she was looking forward to a peaceful cup of tea. Suddenly, word came from the emergency room. "They've brought in a prisoner." So much for an uneventful shift. The doctor went downstairs. The labouring woman lay half-reclined on the couch, quietly moaning in pain, with the guards and duty nurse hovering nearby. "Get her up for sanitation," Dr. Gibbs ordered after a quick examination, nodding to the orderlies. They lifted the woman onto a gurney and wheeled her away. The guards started to follow. "And where do you think you're going?" Dr. Gibbs asked, surprised. "You can't enter the maternity ward. We have special protocols." "We have our own protocols," snapped one of the guards. "We must be present." "Absolutely not," Barbara exclaimed, blocking their path. "I won't have you frightening other mothers. This isn't a prison. These are our rules. In the head doctor's absence, I'm in charge, and I decide who enters and who doesn't." "You don't understand. She's a prisoner. We've provided all the documentation." "I perfectly understand, but first and foremost, she's a woman giving birth to a child. What if she escapes?" "Are you serious? She's 6 centimetres dilated, though I suppose that means nothing to you." Dr. Gibbs shook her head. "I've made myself clear. If we can't attend the birth, we must handcuff her," insisted the escort. "Trust me, it's in your interests." The woman didn't bother asking why it might be in her interests. She just sighed heavily. "Fine, let them chain her. I'll call you later. Have some decency." When they brought the labouring woman into the delivery room, the escorts handcuffed her wrist to the bed. "Now leave," Dr. Gibbs commanded sharply. The men left, saying they would wait in the emergency room. "You really showed them who is in charge here," smiled young paediatrician Sarah Greer. "I don't need their interference here." Dr. Gibbs muttered and approached the woman in labour. Her tone softening to gentle warmth, she asked, "Now then, my dear, remind me of your name." "Mia," the prisoner moaned. "Mia," repeated the doctor. Her face flickered with emotion, paling momentarily before she composed herself. "Listen to me now, Mia. Forget everything else in the world. The baby is all that matters right now. His life depends on you. Don't waste energy shouting. Just listen to my instructions." The mother-to-be nodded obediently. Woman, prisoner. The words seemed incompatible with the young girl, no more than 20, who now struggled on the birthing chair handcuffed. How had she ended up in such circumstances? What had she done? Barbara Gibbs caught herself sympathising with this girl. And her child. A difficult path lay ahead for both of them. Brushing off unnecessary thoughts, Barbara began her work. She spoke with clarity and confidence, encouraging the labouring woman, remaining attentive and professional throughout. Her voice instilled trust, helping to manage the pain, to endure it all. Women who delivered at this maternity hospital considered themselves fortunate to be in Dr. Gibbs's care. She was like a mother to them, her expertise and gentle hands having helped many children to see this world. Dr. Gibbs had been working in this maternity hospital for more than 20 years, since she returned from the city to work as a midwife. She didn't need any regalia or medals. She simply did her job well, earning only good reviews. But Barbara herself had endured a difficult fate that few people knew about. 30 years ago, after graduating from medical school, Barbara got a job at a city maternity hospital. Soon she married. Her daughter, Mia, was born, and Barbara was immensely happy. Barbara's husband, Taylor, was developing a serious business at the time. Though it was a difficult period, he was succeeding. The family lived well, wanting for nothing. But money, as they say, spoils people. Soon, the once caring and attentive Taylor changed beyond recognition. He became rude to Barbara, would raise his hand against her, and often didn't come home at night. One day, Barbara saw him embracing a striking blonde. They were walking through the city, kissing. Even upon noticing Barbara, Taylor showed no embarrassment, merely smirking as he said, "What are you looking at? Go home, watch our daughter." Barbara couldn't even muster the strength to making a scene there on the street. Her body stiffened with hurt, tears flooding her eyes. At home, she tried to talk things through, but Taylor simply beat her. Afterward, Barbara wanted to flee to her mother in the district village, but her husband threatened to take her daughter away. He spoke with such conviction that Barbara dared not test his threats. For several more years she endured all his humiliation. When Mia was 5, Taylor himself announced he wanted a divorce. He had met an attractive, well-off woman whose father was either a banker or a businessman. "And you, hillbilly, get lost." He laughed in Barbara's face. Barbara, swallowing the insult, initially felt relieved at this outcome, but as it turned out, prematurely. In court, Taylor took custody of their daughter. His lawyers fabricated a story painting Barbara as a negligent mother. The court stripped her of parental rights. The devastated mother long tried to prove this was all lies, orchestrated by her husband, but no one would listen. The story centered on an incident that had occurred a few months before the divorce. While walking in the park, Mia had run toward some bushes as her mother tied her shoelace. Suddenly her daughter screamed. Barbara rushed over. Mia had caught her foot on a wire protruding from the bushes. The metal had cut into her skin. Barbara immediately took her daughter by taxi to a trauma centre where they stitched the wound. Though the injury wasn't serious, it left an arrow-shaped scar on her foot. The lawyers inflated this story to incredible proportions, inventing several other instances of supposed negligence. They even produced witnesses. Barbara needed competent legal defence, but she was at a loss, not expecting such malice from her husband. Taylor took their daughter and disappeared. Mutual acquaintances suggested it was pointless to search for Mia. Taylor had married that woman and moved abroad with her and the child. Despite Barbara's efforts, she could learn nothing more of Mia's fate. She had no choice but to return to her mother in the village. There she found work at the maternity hospital, where, for years, she had helped other women become mothers, though she lost that joy forever herself. Barbara never remarried, rejecting all suitors. After her mother's death, she lived alone, giving all her care and love to her patients. She treated every woman equally, whether rich or poor, high-ranking or a milkmaid. All were vulnerable in their pain, all needed help, and they received it, just like this young prisoner. When Barbara heard her name, memories of her daughter surfaced again. But why memories? She never forgot her for a moment. Now her daughter would be the same age as this girl criminal. Where was her little one, her own flesh and blood? Perhaps she had become a mother too. Dr. Gibbs shook her head, pushing away the anxious thoughts, and focused on her work. "Mia, this is no way to do it," she said sternly, and continued giving commands. "Breathe! Breathe correctly! Put your foot like this!" As she adjusted the woman's foot, she saw something familiar. There was an arrow-shaped scar on the patient's foot. Though barely visible, Barbara needed only a fleeting glance to recognize the scar she could never mistake for another. It was the one she had kissed when her daughter's wound had healed. She even dreamed of it. "Mia!" Barbara whispered in shock, frozen in place. "Yes, I," moaned the woman in labour. Is something wrong?" No, everything is going well. You're doing great." Barbara came to her senses, noticing the surprised looks of the nurse and paediatrician. "Nothing is certain yet. Maybe it's just a coincidence." Soon Mia gave birth to a healthy baby girl. Barbara placed the tiny infant on her mother's chest and watched their first meeting with joy. "Daughter, my darling," Mia whispered, kissing the tiny fingers. "I will not abandon you. I will not give you to anyone, my darling." The young mother cried so sincerely, so bitterly, that all the women in the labour room involuntarily squeezed their eyes shut. It was an unenviable fate for the newborn and her mother. Even if they were allowed to be together for a while, they would still be separated. After all the procedures, mother and baby were taken to the ward. The convoy, now permitted to enter, and finally remove the handcuffs, intended to take Mia straight back to the colony and let the guardianship authorities deal with the child. Mia, sobbing, listened to this on the gurney, but no one paid attention to her hysterics. "The bosses ordered it. How is she?" one of the escorts asked Barbara dismissively. "The patient is fragile, and I won't discharge her until morning at the earliest," she replied, barely restraining herself from yelling at the insolent escort. "But we have a hospital in the prison. She can recover there." "What if her condition worsens during transport?" "No, I'm not letting her go anywhere." There was nothing to be done. The convoy yielded to the medic's words, but warned that their colleagues would come to guard the ward today. Barbara was forced to agree. She was tired of arguing. But where could a woman run after childbirth? She couldn't even stand yet. Yet Barbara also had a superior and the law. In the evening, the woman went into the resident's room and tiredly sank into an armchair. All her thoughts were about the woman she had delivered today. Mia. Could she really be her daughter? But why was she in prison? What had she done? Where was her wealthy father? Or perhaps that scar was just a vision. She needed to check Mia's foot again. Barbara reviewed the patient's chart. Type 3 positive blood. Same as herself. And the face. Now it seemed to Barbara that Mia looked just like her late mother. After all, her daughter had inherited her grandmother's green eyes and blonde hair. Could it be true? Barbara left the resident's room and headed for Mia's room. There was no convoy yet, and the midwife quietly opened the door. The young mother was asleep. Barbara cautiously approached, lifted the blanket, and looked at the foot. Yes, that very scar. Mia opened her eyes. What happened? Something wrong with my girl? She tried to lift herself up, but winced in pain. Hush, hush, sweetheart, Barbara whispered. Everything's fine with your baby. I just came to check on you. Everything hurts, Mia said pitifully. That's normal. It happens. Everything will pass. The pain will subside. And there will be only joy that you now have a daughter, answered Barbara. She spoke quietly, calmly, though her lips trembled, and her hands were shaking. She clasped them together and sat down on the chair beside her. Mia, tell me, what happened to you? Why did you end up in the colony? Maybe I can help. Or is there something you need to inform your relatives about? I have no one, Mia answered softly. And why I ended up there? Nobody believed me. And why would you? Tell me, will they really take my daughter away from me? Didn't they say we'd be together until she was 3? Saying this, Mia, overcoming the pain, raised herself on her elbow. Biting her already blooded lips, she stared unblinkingly at the doctor. Barbara didn't know how to answer. In this case, everything was out of her hands. I'll try to find out everything, she reassured. And you tell me about yourself. I can see that you're not a criminal. You're just in trouble. That's right, Mia cried. And I don't know what to do, how to live on. And the girl told her story. Barbara learned that as a child, Mia lived abroad with her father and his wife. She barely remembered her mother. Her father said she had died. Her stepmother constantly insulted her. Abroad, her father's business began to fall apart, forcing them to move to the homeland. But even here things went poorly. A few years later, her father and stepmother died in an accident, and the bank seized all their property for debts. At 15, Mia found herself in an orphanage. The 3 years before graduation became a living hell. Her peers disliked her, considering her a white crow. She endured constant cruel jokes and nagging, with no friends to turn to. Finishing school became her salvation. The girl thought all the hardships in her life were over, but everything was just beginning. Mia had a talent for drawing and dreamed of becoming a clothing designer. She enrolled in a college and, thankfully, the state provided her as an orphan with a small apartment, her sanctuary of comfort and peace. After classes, she would come home and dream. Mia envisioned becoming a designer with her own atelier. She would meet her prince, build a strong family, and have at least 3 children. Mia longed for a large family, certain she would make a wonderful mother. She would be the most loving, the most tender, just like her own mother, whom she barely remembered. Only in dreams did she glimpse her mother's hazy image and hear her forgotten voice, so melodious and soft. Her father never spoke about her, and no photographs survived. He claimed the photo album was lost during the move, and digital versions were corrupted by a virus. Her mum's name was like yours, Barbara, Mia told the doctor, sharing her memories. She didn't notice how Barbara turned pale and clasped her hands tighter as she continued her story. After graduating from college, she found work at a sewing factory. She excelled at everything, earning praise from her supervisor. A promotion seemed possible, and she even considered further education, but fate took a sharp turn. Mia met Nigel, a handsome young man with an expensive car, who showered her with gifts and flowers. Mia's heart melted. Her dreams seemed within reach, and she imagined their wedding. Nigel had influential parents, his father in the police, his mother in city administration. The orphan girl believed that they would like her, even though she herself had not a penny. After all, Nigel loved her. She waited for him to introduce her to his parents, but he kept postponing, citing his busy work schedule. Mia could never understand his work. Vague trips, meetings, communications. Nigel just laughed, saying it wasn't time for her to know everything yet. Then the police raided her small apartment and found illegal substances. Mia was stunned. Where had they come from? The truth about Nigel's real activities began to dawn on her. He had been using her apartment to store his goods. He escaped consequences. His influential relatives protected him. They made it appear as though Mia was involved in possessing and selling illegal substances. No one believed her protests of innocence. They pressed her to reveal her accomplices, promising a reduced sentence for cooperation. But Mia truly knew nothing. Nigel pretended complete innocence, even testifying for the prosecution. Mia couldn't believe her beloved would betray her like this. She had trusted him completely, yet he had used and ruined her, without any hesitation or remorse. Her state-appointed lawyer made no attempt to defend her, and the judge sentenced her to 5 years in a general regime colony. Once in prison, Mia lost her will to live. Deceived, trampled, slandered. Why had they done this to her? There were so many questions but no answers. If it hadn't been for the support of one fellow prisoner at the very beginning, who knows how it would have ended. Lena was serving time for theft and had a young son living with his grandmother. Despite her circumstances, Lena remained optimistic and kept telling Mia that she had to live in spite of all her enemies. "When you get out, then you'll settle scores," she said. "Revenge is a dish best served cold." Mia only nodded weakly in response. Revenge? She couldn't. She wouldn't be able to. And she couldn't bear being locked up for so many years. Then came the unexpected news. Mia was pregnant. The prison doctor discovered it during her next medical examination and immediately asked if she planned to keep the child. "I do," Mia answered firmly. A ray of hope flickered in her fate. She was no longer alone in this vast world of lies and deceit. Against all odds, she would endure to raise her baby. Lena supported her friend's decision. There was a possibility of parole. Mia could live with the baby for up to 3 years, though in a different colony. They would have to part ways, but it was manageable. Plans were made to transfer Mia to another colony, but the paperwork kept getting delayed. They delayed until her 40th week, and on the bumpy road to the new prison, Mia went into labour. Thankfully, they encountered this maternity hospital on the way. "You are my saviour, Dr. Gibbs," Mia whispered, finishing her story. "Thank you. I'm just afraid now. Will they really send me back to the old colony? What about my daughter? They promised not to separate us. What should I do?" "Mia, I'll try to help you," Barbara said, her voice trembling. "Poor girl, you've been through so much. Don't worry too much. Everything will improve. Now, get some rest." She ran a trembling hand through Mia's hair, then stood up abruptly and left before the girl could see her tears. Oh God, how Barbara wanted to embrace this girl, hold her close, shield her from the world. Yes, this was her daughter. Now she knew it for sure. But it was too soon to tell Mia. Her girl had already endured so many trials, with more surely to come. The news of a newly resurrected mother might be misinterpreted. What if she thought Barbara had simply abandoned her? That confession wasn't the priority right now. The crucial task was finding a way to help Mia. Yes, she was innocent. Barbara was certain of that. But mere words wouldn't help. Then Barbara remembered, about a year ago, the wife of a prominent capital lawyer had given birth in their maternity hospital. They'd been visiting relatives in the countryside when his wife went into labour in her 8th month. The lawyer had been distraught, blaming himself for bringing his pregnant wife to such a remote location. But Barbara had managed to turn the baby herself, and it was born perfectly healthy. The infant needed to stay in the hospital with its mother for a while, but all turned out well. The lawyer had expressed profound gratitude to Barbara, saying he was in her debt, and gave her his card just in case. The woman had simply smiled, but kept the business card. Now, Barbara was frantically searching for that business card. Fortunately, she found it at the bottom of her handbag. "Mr. Flanagan, hello," Barbara began the conversation excitedly. The lawyer immediately recognised her and expressed joy. After briefly discussing his son and wife, they turned to the matter at hand. Barbara explained Mia's situation. "Yes, the case is difficult," the lawyer agreed. "But I don't understand why you care so much about this girl. I know you have a good heart, but perhaps things aren't exactly as she told you." "This girl, as you put it, is my daughter," said Barbara, swallowing a lump in her throat. She revealed everything. About the scar, her husband, the blood type, all of it. "You're certain?" the lawyer asked. "More than certain." "Then I'll take the case," he replied firmly. "Mr. Flanagan, I'll pay whatever you ask." "Dr. Gibbs, please. You saved my child, and I will save yours. I won't accept any payment. Here's what we'll do. Tomorrow morning, I'll visit the investigation committee and begin working on this. Stay calm. Even if Mia leaves your hospital tomorrow, she won't remain in the colony for long. Your task is to negotiate with guardianship to prevent the baby from being sent to an orphanage right away. By law, we can keep a child in our hospital for a medical examination for a month." "That's wonderful." This conversation gave Barbara hope that everything would work out. Even the guards stationed outside Mia's room since night didn't worry her. Mr. Flanagan would handle everything. The next morning, Mia was transferred to the prison hospital. In the corridor, Barbara managed to whisper that a lawyer from the capital had taken her case. "Be patient. Your ordeal will soon be over." She squeezed the girl's hand. "Get away from the prisoner!" The guard barked. Barbara stepped back without argument, offering Mia only a smile. "Dr. Gibbs, will you look after Sue?" Mia called out desperately. "Sue?" Barbara paled. "I named my daughter that." "Of course I will," she replied. Later she gazed at the door, behind which Mia had disappeared under escort. Sue. That was Barbara's mother's name. Why had Mia chosen that name? She couldn't possibly have remembered her grandmother's name. Blood memory? Barbara could find no other explanation. Barbara went to the nursery where little Sue lay. The baby was awake, her blue eyes taking in the world, unaware of the struggle surrounding her and her mother. "My little girl, my granddaughter," Barbara whispered. "Grow up, gain strength. I'll pray that everything works out." She touched the baby's soft cheek, feeling a sweet warmth spread through her. Leaving the nursery, Barbara contemplated whom to contact about Sue's guardianship. She encountered the department head, recently returned from a business trip. "Quite a day yesterday, Dr. Gibbs." He smiled and continued. "First day we've had a prisoner give birth here. Good that she's been moved. I'll arrange to have the baby transferred soon. There could be complications." "Please, don't rush with the child." Barbara met his eyes firmly. "Dr. Johnson, if possible, I'd like to take the child myself." "Barbara, what are you thinking?" the department head exclaimed. "This isn't a kitten. It's a baby requiring constant care. How will you manage? What about work? I understand maternal instinct, but why take this on? You're not young anymore. And when the convict is released, what then?" "Dr. Johnson, so many questions." Barbara smiled. "I've made my decision. If they grant me custody, I'll take maternity leave." "Barbara, I won't allow it." "Kenneth, enough!" Barbara waved him off and walked away. She wasn't going to explain anything to the head doctor, who had asked her out more than once while he was married. No, he wasn't bad or vindictive. Just now all explanations were unnecessary. Barbara was going to the guardianship office, where the chief specialist was a woman whom she had helped in labour. Barbara hoped to persuade her to grant temporary custody of Sue. It wasn't easy, but Barbara succeeded. Within a week they gave her the little girl. As promised, she took vacation leave. Her colleagues were shocked. No one understood why she, an excellent specialist devoted to her work, suddenly gave up everything to care for a convict's child. Several months passed. Barbara cared for Sue, and the baby grew healthy, resembling her mother more each day. Her eyes turned green, and blonde curls formed atop her head. Grandmother admired her little granddaughter. Yes, she was certain Mia was her daughter. No DNA tests were needed. Sue was an exact copy of little Mia, just as Barbara remembered her. Throughout this time, she wrote to her daughter, describing Sue's development and their daily life, but she never hinted about who Mia truly was. The time wasn't right. Mia's case underwent review. The investigation was difficult and lengthy. After 3 months, the lawyer gathered all the evidence, proving Nigel was guilty of the crime for which Mia was serving time. Nigel was arrested, and Mia was finally acquitted and released from the colony. It was early summer. She stepped outside the prison gates and breathed in the fresh air. God, freedom! Soon she would see her daughter, fall at Dr. Gibbs's feet, and thank her for everything. The lawyer had told her who hired him. Mia couldn't believe it. How could a stranger stand up for her just like that? On the bus riding down the gravel road, Mia's thoughts raced. Yes, Dr. Gibbs helped her, but what next? She needed to restore her rights. But would the guardianship office return her child? She had a place to live but no job. How would she work? What would she live on? An allowance? But that still needed to be arranged. And what if Dr. Gibbs didn't want to give up Sue? Doubts and questions tormented the unhappy mother. Finally, the familiar village appeared, where she had given birth last spring. She knew Dr. Gibbs's address from the letters. After asking passers-by for directions, she walked on. There stood the house, nestled among trees. Her daughter lived here now. Mia timidly opened the gate, walked along the path to the house, and suddenly heard Barbara's voice from the veranda. "My golden granddaughter, let's go for a walk, get some fresh air. Listen to the birds singing." Barbara rolled the stroller onto the porch and, seeing her visitor, gasped. "Mia, you're here. Why didn't you tell me you'd been released today? I would have ordered a cab." "I didn't want to trouble you with such trifles," Mia answered tensely. "Here I am. You won't send me away?" "Never! My girl, come in, come in." "May I?" Mia stepped toward the stroller. "Of course," smiled Barbara. "Sue, your mother has arrived." Mia leaned over the stroller and saw her girl for the first time after their long separation. She wanted so much to take her baby in her arms, to hold her to her heart, to kiss her hard and strong. But Mia hesitantly touched the girl's hand and then suddenly cried. "Mia, what are you doing?" Barbara asked in surprise. "I'm afraid to take her. I'm stinking of the zone, dirty, and I can't wash it off. I can't forget it," whispered Mia. "My girl," exclaimed Barbara, wrapping Mia in her arms. "You are the purest in the world. Everything will be forgotten. Believe me. The main thing is that you are together now." They stood, embraced. Mia cried and thanked Barbara for her help, for the lawyer, for everything. The woman only held her tighter. The little girl watched them seriously from the stroller. Finally, coming to their senses, they went into the house. There was no time for walks now. After a shower, Mia held her baby close. Sue, as if sensing her mother, smiled and hummed. Barbara watched them both adoringly. Mother and daughter together. This was happiness. Yet the most serious conversation still lay ahead. Mia hesitated for a long time before finally asking when Barbara could give her Sue. "I'll have to go to the guardianship, go to the city, solve all the issues there," she explained. "I need to register at the clinic, get an allowance, settle the debts on utilities. Perhaps Sue could stay with you for a while? Would you mind?" "Why do you have to go anywhere?" Barbara said. "Stay here." "No, it's not convenient. I can't take advantage of your kindness forever. I know you're used to Sue. I even heard you call her granddaughter, but—" "And she is my granddaughter," Barbara said softly. "I don't understand. Mia, you're my daughter." And Barbara began her story. Mia listened confused, blinking and shaking her head. "You're my mother. But why? Why is it like this? My father said you were dead. You abandoned me, didn't you?" Mia cried out. "And you kept silent all this time?" "That's why I kept silent, because I knew this would be your first reaction," Barbara said, her voice trembling. "But I didn't leave you. Your father deceived everyone. He separated us." "You didn't even look for me?" "They told me you were abroad. I was sure you were doing well. Then suddenly I saw you in the hospital, recognized you by your scar. Daughter, I didn't betray you." Mia looked at Barbara with tear-filled eyes, then placed Sue in the crib and threw herself into her mother's arms. "My mummy, my dear, and I thought you would only be with me in dreams forever." "Both in dreams and in reality. I will always be with you," Barbara whispered, breathing in the scent of her daughter's hair. "With you and my granddaughter. I'm sorry you lived without me for so many years, suffered so much. We'll fix everything. We'll start again. You'll be happy, for sure. We'll be happy," Mia pulled away from her mother's shoulder and looked into her eyes. They both laughed through their tears, and from the crib, smiling toothlessly at them, lay their happiness, a daughter and a granddaughter. Now 3 dear hearts would beat side by side.